and pay off, your bills and debts. So all four of us did that, and we all have jobs, and trying to save up for a house. But for our students, it is imperative that they do get a college degree, and with all the other gaps, the gender, high-paying jobs for men and women, or the color gaps. So if you're white, or Asian or brown, there is all these gaps, and at least if anything, our kids can earn a little bit of success, it would be to earn a college degree. Yeah, I think that's it.
Traditional public schools or charter schools? Which side has the greener grass?
Oh my God. Well, I have to continue with the, what is that called? I'm an English teacher. The extended metaphor of me as a gardener. And I think the grass is green where you water it. And so I would have to say, in every classroom where there's an excellent teacher and an excellent school leader and an excellent superintendent, and a education policy maker in the capital of whatever state, city, country you're in, it would be both charter schools and public schools.
I want to speak on it because I've only worked at a charter school, and I feel like I'm often under attack as if I don't get the real reality because I don't work for Houston Public Schools. And it's a big misconception that Yes Prep only takes smart kids, and my school is actually lottery, open enrollment, so I have kids who read on kindergarten level, and I have sixth graders who are reading better than some high schoolers. But I heard an analogy, maybe metaphor, I teach science. I heard a story from the Yes Prep founder, Chris Barbick, that I always think about when I get that public versus charter. And he said, for years, the United States Postal Service kept saying, we cannot deliver things overnight. That just won't happen. We don't have the capacity, we don't have the manpower. It will always take more than 24 hours for you to get your mail. Then lo and behold, UPS came along, and UPS said, you know what? We can do that. We will get you your mail overnight. Did USPS now bow out and no longer exist? Did UPS take over the whole mail system? No, but UPS pushed USPS to say, hey, if they can get mail overnight, then we can get mail overnight too. And now you can walk into your post office and you don't have to go to UPS and get your mail overnight. And so I feel like it's not about we're better, but in my experience in Houston, and Yes now has partnerships with public schools, there's been sort of this push towards it's like a healthy competition where we're pushing each other to meet these goals. So I'm very pro charter school.
I've done both, and I was placed at a traditional DOE school in New York City, and then I went over to KIPP. Honestly, I went over to KIPP because my teacher said, I'm only leaving the classroom if you take over for me, so you need to come because I need a break. And that's why I went. And I'm gonna be honest with you, the grass is greener for me because I am being developed as a teacher, whereas in my traditional DOE school, that wasn't the case because they didn't have the manpower to do it. And that's the sad reality of it. I think there's another part to this too, like if you have a teacher, I have someone on my staff right now that is coming from a traditional DOE school and has only been at a DOE school, and this is her first year at a charter, and she's like, girl, let me tell you, I'm walking out of these doors at 5:30, 6:30, 7, and I'm still going back to do more work, whereas like I was at the DOE getting paid about the same, and I leave at 2:30, right? And so I was like, ooh, but so I think it really does come down to like the teacher too, right? Like what is greener for you? Is it greener for you to be more developed and to have support and to have your principal say like, girl, I got your back. That parent that's coming for your neck right now, she's like, you'll be all right. Or do you want to walk out at 2, I mean, at least in my experience, walk out at 2:30, but your principal like doesn't know who you are.
Shannon, can I make a really quick point? So I've taught at a traditional public school for 6 years, and my campus continually gets more charter schools on it. Like, we're bleeding enrollment. We're an intensive support school. The district can't actually intensively support us. And I am a district employee, so I'm saying this all with full understanding. One of my biggest tensions with Teach for America is that they place in the Bay Area consistently in charter schools that are able to recruit teachers who are going to come in at a higher salary, and we were down 230 teachers at the start of the school year, and mostly in math and science, which I get spicy about this because those people are turning over, right? But I saw tons of my babies in classrooms without teachers because Teach for America has made partnerships with Aspire and KIP and organizations in the Bay, and I get really frustrated because I think that schools like Oakland Unified need placement of excellent people like you, particularly alumni. So if you want to come teach, like, let me know. But I mean, whether or not the grass is actually greener, and it might not be, like, if we're actually doing our mission as Teach for America during the 2 years that you're in a classroom, then I really just have a tension with the placements in these, like, better paid and more attractive positions. Throw it out there.
White teachers will inherently have a more difficult time connecting to students and families of color than teachers who share the racial or ethnic background of their students. Fair or foul?
I almost had heart palpitations when I saw this because I come from the 2007 core where they put the teachers of color in one room, like the core members of color in one room, and all the other and then the white core members in the other room, and then they told the ones of color, and they said, you will be more successful in the classroom because data says since you look like your kids, you will be better. And I was like, oh my God, this is day one. Really? Like, this is where we start? I don't think it's true. I don't think that white teachers will inherently have a more difficult time connecting to their students. I think that it's all about how you connect with your kid as a person and how you are socialized. I do believe that there is a serious problem with certain teachers, black, white, Puerto Rican, Asian, that believe or have pity for our kids. That is a serious problem. Do not come riding on whatever horse you represent. Don't come riding on that horse to save our black and brown children. We don't need saving. I will tell you that as because yes, I was one of those teachers. Well, I was one of those kids. And I am one of those teachers now. I can't tell you that my kids in Washington Heights look at me and say, she's Dominican, so I'm going to be more successful in this classroom because she's Dominican. No, that's not the case. But I will say that I know what it's like to be the one brown person in a room, but the only chocolate chip in the cookie. And let me tell you, it is real uncomfortable. It is really uncomfortable. But I don't think, and I'm sure that being a white teacher in front of all brown children can at times be uncomfortable. I can't tell you that experience. I'm not white, right? But I have seen plenty of white teachers that connect with our kids. I have seen plenty of teachers of color that cannot connect with a single child. And the thing is, like, I call, for instance, this makes me spicy. It really does make me spicy. Because I have found that I think that schools think that strong black males are the answer to, right? Everybody in here is thinking the same thing. they think that that is the answer to behavior problems, and that makes me so mad because it's like, what do you mean? Why? Like I still don't understand the rationale behind that. I do not believe that your race will determine whether or not you will connect with kids. I do think that the kids will look at you and say, he looks like me, she looks like me, and that does matter. But it doesn't mean that you will be more successful in a classroom.
I didn't really take, this is going to be a little debate. I didn't really take connect as meaning academic success. However, my human nature, when I walk into a room, I count how many other black people are in there, and I usually will go to that group first. I gravitate towards people who look like me. And often at my school, what I have seen is that teachers of color will often have the kids hanging out in their classrooms, and my coworkers are like, I can't connect to this kid. And sometimes I do say, well, first it's because I'm black. And kids think there's an automatic connection between us. And so they are more open sometimes to come and talk to me first. And I do encourage them, to get to know their teachers. But when you have kids who've not had experiences with white people other than negative, and you're a teacher and you're yelling at this little black boy, or there's like a disconnect. You're misunderstanding his behavioral cues, and he's misunderstanding yours. Like when we get loud, we move our hands, we talk a little, or when we get excited, we talk a little louder. And I've had teachers who are not familiar with that culture and feel like this student is being aggressive with me, and now that's caused like a barrier between the two of them, or they get into this power struggle. So I do think that we need to step it up in terms of how we are training teachers to deal with students of color. I don't want to assume, I would never say a white teacher won't connect, but I do think it's a little bit more difficult. You're going to have to take that extra mile to get to know your kids and find some way that you guys are going to connect on, because our kids will look at you and on the outside perceive that we have nothing in common. And so you're going to have to take that extra step to break down that barrier and connect with your kids.
We're going to the mail time from Alex Urgency. They say, I believe discussing current events like police brutality with my students is important, but we can't lose any class time to talk because academically they're so far behind.
Well, I mean, I think I speak for everybody on this panel when I say, amen, Alex. I couldn't agree more, right? 100% spot on, obviously. Alex, no, right? Obviously. Your students are people, and you need to humanize the young people in your classroom, and you need to give value to the issues that are affecting them in their community. I think a couple things in relation to this. First, I think Alex needs to just be aware that that there are many ways that you can incorporate current events into your curriculum, that really anything you're teaching your kids needs to be rooted in their identities and their communities, and ideally leading them toward self-advocacy and political action. I think more importantly, there's I think this is especially true for white teachers, kind of going into the last question, but I think we need to honor how profoundly different issues affect the students that we work with, and I think we need to really be aware of how deafening white silence is. I think, I've read a bit about the idea that when it comes to white reactions to violence against people in communities of color, silence is violence, and I think the idea is that we, as white teachers especially, we need to be examples for our students, that we give a damn that people and kids that look like them are terrorized and murdered. I think our kids see countless examples through our politicians, through decisions of grand juries, through a number of different things that we as a society would tolerate their murder, that we would be fine with them being killed, so because they look a certain way or because they live in a certain neighborhood. And I think they're getting that message all the time. That's out there. But I think it's very different to get that message from the teacher that's in front of you that's supposed to love you and care about you and do anything for you. That sends a very, very different message to our kids. And that's the message I think that we send if we choose to ignore and not talk about the issues that our students, communities, our students, in whatever sense you want to think about that, our students' families are facing. And I think I had teaching colleagues, for example, who, and I know that you might get into issues with your administration about doing this, but a teacher I really respect in Minnesota, after the grand jury decision on Darren Wilson, where they decided not to indict him for the murder of Mike Brown, he spent the whole day with his kids just having discussions and letting them talk and process and honoring like that there was value in them talking about what they were feeling. He tweeted about a lot of what the very profound things that they were thinking about. And I think that having those conversations is essential for our kids because they're people. And just, I don't want to say also that I'm very good at this. I'm definitely, a lot of times I think this goes to what we were talking about on the last question, as I've definitely felt inadequate to the task teaching all new to country students who are new immigrants. I felt unequal to acculturating them to racism or like acculturating them to Islamophobia. Like I felt like I don't know how to prepare them to be hated. And I think that I think that in some ways that was a very naive way to think, because I think I was neglecting how universal issues of white supremacy are and how quickly students learn that the way they look or the God they believe in is something that is going to be problematic for them and going to make people hate them. So I think just coming from a place of vulnerability, coming from a place of being a white teacher, that these are issues that I'm never going to understand, but I honor them and I need to work to understand them. I'm not going to make you be the person that makes me understand. I need to, on my own, understand them and work with you to figure out how we can solve them. I think that's far more important than, I don't know, the standardized test you got to take the next day.
I would also say that the most important thing that I've learned over the 5 years that I've taught is that our classrooms need to be more about developing our students as good people than just develop them in our content areas. I would argue that is the most important charge that we all have, is that no matter what our students end up doing in their lives, that they end up helping others. I mean, this is like what we're doing with our careers, like we're spending our time helping others. And I think that one of the most important discussions I've ever had in my classroom was immediately after the Paris attacks this year. And the kids were just, they were saddened, but they had so many questions about why is it that all across Facebook you could just change your profile picture to the French flag, but yet we seem to ignore maybe in the media like a lot of the brutality that's actually happening in their neighborhood and across this country. And it was something that I stepped back as a teacher and was so proud of my students that they created this safe space in our classroom. And so I teach algebra and geometry, and this is like way far out of like what algebra and geometry like we talk about in our classroom, but it was so important for our kids. And what this has led to in our classroom has been this sort of idea that with the knowledge that we gain, we should be able to help others and we should be able to solve problems. And that to me has just been the greatest part of this year, is that I know that no matter what, my students are developing into good people, and that they are going to stand up for whatever people and injustices are happening in this world.
Should teachers come out to their students?
All right. So I think the easy answer and the idealistic answer is absolutely. I think that absolutely teachers should come out to their students to serve as examples and role models and someone to talk to. But the realistic answer for me has not been so easy. I have made the conscious decision not to come out to my students because of the community that I serve, because of the school that I work in, because of the age group that I serve. And even though I know a lot of people would disagree with that decision, I feel like it has helped me fundamentally connect with my students and the families that I serve. I have had students, I'm very open and out with my students that I taught years ago. So like all of my college students know, all of my high school students know. But I've had students who, if they told their parents that I was happily married to another woman, that they would not be able to go on college visits with me, and they would not be able to have lunch with me, and they would not be able to stay in touch with me. And although that breaks my heart, because it should not be that way, the reality of the situation, it is that way. And my relationships with my kids are the driving force behind the reason why I teach. And although I am evolving to the point where I know that I will need to come out to my current students relatively soon, within the next year or so, just because fundamentally it's very hard to live that dual existence in that hidden life, and I don't want to do it anymore. And in a way, teaching has caused me to grow up in a way that I feel like I need to rectify and align my visions, and that's coming. And so I just have to be honest that it's difficult. So idealistically, yes; realistically, difficult.
Yeah, I think I have a very similar sort of reaction as Jennifer did. I think that I would love to be out with my students, but I feel like when I grew up in Wyoming, and when I was in 6th grade, Matthew Shepard was murdered in my state. And soon after that is when I started to develop these feelings that I really quickly realized were the wrong way to feel, the wrong kind of different, and that by becoming gay, that I would be gay full stop. There was no room for anything else, and that meant that I was going to be hated. Like, these feelings were going to make me be hated and make people want to hurt me. And I feel like that's a very privileged position too, because my students, many people spend their whole lives with identities that make people hate them and want to hurt them. But I just have this one. But for me, it was this idea of, and I don't know if it's similar for you, Jennifer, but just that you, by being gay, you lose the people you love. You're going to lose your family, you're going to lose your friends, you're going to lose God, perhaps. And that, the way that feeling has shifted now to being a teacher is that now, I could lose the people I love, but the people I love are my students. Mm-hmm. And I also have all my students nearly all my students are religiously conservative. They, many don't take pictures. There's a number of things that are very, maybe I'm not giving my families enough credit, but I have been advised by people that share the religion and the ethnic background of my students not to come out. And I hate it. I feel like a failure every single day, because I know that I'm not being that role model for my kids that I needed someone to be for me. And I know that, and I hate it. But I'm so afraid, and so this is just this cowardice, but I'm so afraid of losing my kids, losing these people that I love, that to me is more important than having to hide this part of who I am and having to not be a full person in the classroom. And I think even within that realm, we can still do a lot. We still talk about different kinds of families. I still teach my kids gender-neutral pronouns. I still make sure that we don't use homophobic language for each other. But I recognize that I'm in a fundamental way of failing my kids by not being fully open and out with them, and I'm struggling to figure out how to do it. I want to, but I'm not there.
This message was sent from Anonymous. How can we make the teaching profession more professional?
I want to speak to that. I feel like when I knew for a long time I wanted to be a teacher, I'm a corps member, but my degree is in education. And I just saw Teach for America as an avenue that I could use to get into the school system, and also to unite with people behind a common goal and a common mission. But I can recall because I had good grades, I was very much a nerd in school, that people were kind of you sure you want to go into teaching? You don't want to go to medical school? You don't want to be a lawyer? And so there's this sort of this value that we place on other professions that we don't place on teaching, as we're all aware. And I think that there are some things that both admin and those in charge can do and things that teachers can do. Starting with salary rises, right? Like doctors, we value, she said so she could buy a house. We pay doctors, I'm gonna use medicine just as an example, but we pay doctors lots and lots of money because we value what they do. And I feel like that same sort of value needs to be placed on teaching financially as well. Like, we can rearrange some budgets and we can do some things. I hear about some school districts in New York paying their teachers hundreds of $1,000s, and they made that happen. So I think that's one way we can make it more professional. I think also as teachers, we have to seek out ways to hone our craft. Like, it's not enough that I love science, and so I'm going to teach it to my kids, but I need to be seeking outside opportunities besides what my school offers. I need to make sure that I'm up on the latest trends, the events, the research when it comes to my field. And I think people will respect us more when we are not just talking from a place of like, I love kids and I'm serving my community, but I know what I'm speaking about, and I can spit my facts and I can back it up with research. I think people will take teachers much more seriously, and we be considered more professional. Also, things like we don't like the tests and we don't like how often we give them. Well, then we need to start getting behind those tests. Why aren't we creating assessments? Like, all of us are fully capable of knowing what our kids need to learn, so we can create the assessments. And that's my Yes Prep right there. When I started at Yes, we didn't have a district-wide assessment, and now we do, and we created that. We got together and said, yeah, Texas wants us to take these tests, but this isn't fully assessing what our kids can do. So as professionals, let's create our own assessment, and let's give that to our kids, and this will be our measure, not just the tax test or the STAR test of what our kids can do. So yeah, I think that there are things that administration needs to do, and also a lot of things that we can do to take our craft more professionally.
Yeah, and I agree. I just finished reading, Jenny, can you help me? The best teachers. Oh, the smartest kids in the world. But I also have next to that from 4 years ago in 2012, Friedman's, we were something about okay, I'm sorry, I've just failed right now in my memory. But anyways, so there's these two books that I have in my classroom right now. But also I picked up, or I've had this, and I finally got a chance to pick it up this year, Teaching Community, a Pedagogy of Hope by Bell Hooks. And she, in her introduction, made this claim, and I'm like, yes, amen, and I feel like I've been hearing this from teachers too. But I think what Lorraine was saying was that sometimes we have so much humility, we're not even able to, like, praise ourselves, and I think that's our enemy, because then we continue to not be seen as the awesome people that we are as teachers in this community. And so she said, it is crucial that we challenge any feeling of shame or embarrassment that teachers who do their job well might be tempted to indulge when praising ourselves or being praised by others for excellent teaching. For when we hide our light, we collude in the overall cultural devaluation of our teaching vocation. And she goes on to say, do you really think Michael Jordan does not know that he is incredible? If we know we are awesome teachers, we should say that we are. We should introduce ourselves as, I'm a master teacher at Idea College Preparatory Donna, or I am an excellent teacher from Boston Public Schools, or New York City Public Schools, or Baltimore, or DC public schools, and I get paid, a six-figure because I'm a master teacher. So I think it is important for us to really use our voice to say, yes, I'm an excellent teacher, my kids graduate, they get college credit when they take my IB exam or my IB course. or they go on to Princeton and Duke, and they go to Grinnell College in Iowa, or they go to Kalamazoo in Michigan, because we need to show the whole country and the world that teaching is what the teaching that we do, the human connections. A doctor, you only see a doctor for 6 minutes before they move on to the next patient, but teachers are there for 10 months.
Can I say something super fast? One, I agree entirely with salary. Two, I think that, especially as public school teachers, we should start pushing on our union. I realize that's controversial, but just think about it. Thanks, whoever's on. But I will say this. I think what would make teaching more professional, and I love TFA, I don't mean to be up here like being critical of the model, but when you put first-year teachers in classrooms without support in front of kids, then that is not a professional move, and we need some sort of apprenticeship program such that we have multiple teachers in a classroom and we actually value master teachers in a way of passing down practice. And so for me, what would make it more professional is actually viewing me as a professional and not linear to somebody who's going to be there maybe for 6 months, maybe for 1 year, maybe for 2, and I'm not knocking you if you did that. I'm just saying that you should have watched me, you should have watched these people, you should have worked in partnership, and then you would have gone on to a much more fulfilling career. Sorry.
I'm going to go real quick because I'm getting a signal. I just think that the way that we also talk about how we teach in the teaching profession is so important, because for so many people that are not teachers, they get all their teaching information from us. And so I think that like the biggest thing, and I'm guilty of this, is like whenever I was doing the core, everybody was always asking me, what are you going to do after the core? Or like, what are you going to do? Are you going to stay another year teaching? Like, are you going to stay another year? Even this year, like, my parents are still like, are you going to stay another year? And then what are you going to do? And so I think that the question is always like, and then what are you going to do? If this is your passion, if this is your career, if this is something that you are so excited about getting up in the morning, then like tell people about that, because the way that we speak up for ourselves is the way that people will learn that this is a profession that is worth doing.
I think also, it's 30 seconds, I promise. I think also, like, don't leave the classroom, right? Yes. Like, we're all so tired, and like all of us have like an inordinate amount of experience here, but like I have a coworker that's been teaching for 2 years, and she's like, I'm gonna be the dean of special services next year. I'm like, why? Why would you do that? You don't know anything about that. You haven't served enough students. You're totally unqualified. Don't do that. Stay in the classroom, learn how to teach, and like don't do that, right? Like I think there's a really bad culture of like you're good, whatever that means, and then you're immediately moved out of the classroom. Like how are we going to create change?
So Stephanie is getting us started for our parting thoughts, and this is how it's going to work. Starting with Jennifer, we're going to start down there with you. Everyone has 90 seconds to share their wisdom with us. Y'all ready?
Wisdom? Yeah. Sorry. I don't know if it's so much as wisdom, but just reiterating, and it's been said, we need to get paid more. Because I just think, like, I've been doing this for 11 years and I'm still broke. And it's not because I'm not good with money, it's because I don't get paid anything. And I just think that more people would stay in the classroom and they wouldn't jump for those instructional coaching positions and dean positions if we just got paid. So please tell everyone, and I know that you feel the same way, but please, like, we need to start a movement, a bigger movement, for us to get paid, because when I see people getting signing bonuses and just the amount of money the Panthers are going to make tomorrow, like it just really, it honestly breaks my heart, and I could talk about it all day, but we need to get paid more.
Sometimes I feel like such a fraud up here because I am like the one person who's not a full-time classroom teacher anymore. And I moved on in a very deliberate way. So I do spend an hour and a half every morning in a classroom, and I plan on doing that for the rest of my life. Like I cannot start a day without teaching. But I am leading computer science work in Oakland, which feels like a real issue of equity and social justice in an area that's increasingly being integrated into the broader tech landscape. I didn't really get to talk about CS, but I wake up every morning feeling like I am doing the work. And I get to help shape a vision for 50,000 kids to be able to partake in computer science education. So my ask to you all is that you actually consider bringing computing into your classroom, no matter what subject you teach, or that you advocate for your students to have access to that type of education. And I do a lot of work on the side to just ensure that you are able to do that. So I actually curate a website where I'm helping people who currently are classroom practitioners who don't teach CS, no matter what content area, learn how to teach CS, because I just feel like it's so damn important. So that's, I know it seems sort of out of left field, but my parting thought is, like, please, not even just CS, but just like anything that you know that is like risky and pushing you, it's reinvigorating, it sort of recenters you and your vision and your work and why you're doing this and what makes you tick. And for me, bringing computer science to 50,000 kids is just such a blessing, and it's, I really would love for people to join into that work. So yeah, that's just where my head is. And also, I really do have 15 available positions in Oakland Unified. So if you have friends, if you yourself, like anybody, just come talk to me.
Claire, what's the website? What's the website, Claire?
Website.
Oh, sorry. Well, it's on my speaker bio, but Teachers Teach CS, and it's specifically .org. Sorry, and it's specifically for every content area because I want English teachers and history teachers and art teachers. It's not just a math teacher thing, I promise.
Thanks, Claire.
No problem.
The greatest thing that's changed my life has been being able to be part of a community in my classroom where I'm just a part of what is actually happening. And I think that every year sort of my kids come up with a motto and it's their goals, and then everything is like centered around them. And sort of our slogan and like our motto this year has been like, do math, help others. And so it's just been incredible to see just what we can push our kids to do whenever they realize that the math that they're learning can help other people. Some of the greatest experiences that I've had in my classroom have been when my students devise a project based off of a need or a problem that they see, and then our whole goal is that sometime that year we're going to find a solution to it. We have a problem wall in the back of our room where the kids literally just put a Post-it on it, and then whenever they realize that there's something that needs to be solved or something that needs to be fixed, and there's been stuff that's been on there for years, and the last 2 years, like there's some Post-its that are still up there. We haven't found a solution yet, but we're not giving up. But the reason why this year my kids are working on a wheelchair ramp from our second floor to our first floor, because we have some handicapped students that every time that there's a fire drill, they have to take the elevator. And in an actual fire, that's not going to work. So my kids found that they needed to devise a ramp. And so using trigonometry and Pythagorean's theorem, they're right now working on finishing the project that my students last year started. It's all possible. Anything, like, literally is possible if you have the passion in your classroom and you just see just how wonderful these students are, you know? And the other thing is just, I would say, like, stay for a third year. If you're a core member, stay for a third year, stay for a fourth year, stay for a fifth year, like, keep going, because it only gets better, and the love that you have for your kids is not going away. Like, I don't think that what we do is work. I think that it's just fun every day, and it's just that somehow I'm the adult in charge of everything that's happening in my room. And I want to thank whoever did my interview in Chicago like 5 years ago, 'cause I did not think I was going to get in, and I did, so I'm just very thankful that that happened. So.
At first I thought I would speak to the core members in the room. How many core members are in the room?
Oh, wow.
Yes. So I want to speak to the core members, and I also want to speak to the teachers that have been in it for a really long time, because let me tell you, when you are in it for a long time, you feel it. And so first I'm going to say, like, stick with it. Even if you actually aren't in the classroom, because I also don't want to, like, demonize the people that are not in the classroom, because some of us would be great instructional coaches that would build some great teachers, because we need great teachers in the classroom. We also need people to train great teachers, right? So stick with it. it is gonna be hard. There are gonna be days that you're gonna be like, man, I should take a mental health day, right? Like, stick with it. It is so worth it. The best part of my job, and the reason I love working where I work, I love my alum. And I'm speaking as an alum. You get to see the kids. I was at a session where one of my kids was speaking. Literally, she's at RPI now. I taught her 7th and 8th grade math. And like, those are my babies. And I'm so proud to see them go off and like, they get to experience life for themselves. That's the best part of teaching. You get to see them grow up. And even when they fail or they make mistakes, you get to be there to be like, it's okay. Like, that's life. That's what happens. The other thing that I would say is like, listen to how you feel. If you genuinely feel like, man, I think it might be time for me to look at something else or like to move on, like, listen to that and figure out what it is that you want. You have to figure out what it is that you want. Because we also don't need disgruntled teachers in the classroom. That's real. Like, if you are feeling it, the kids are gonna feel it, and it is not their fault. So you gotta be like really honest with yourself about that too. The other thing I would say is like what Michelle Reed was saying earlier, like, find your North Star. Why do you do what you do? I do what I do because of the alumni. I do what I do because I was one of those kids, and I cannot tell you where I would be without my KIT teachers, without Dave Levin. I really cannot tell you where I would be without him. And I say that now as a 30-year-old who has had 9 years of teaching. The last thing I would say is take care of yourself. If you are sick, stay home. I'm serious, core members, if you are sick, stay home, because you are going to infect the rest of the school. And it is not a good example for our kids for us to be dying in front of them and acting like we are saints or martyrs. Like, no one is going to, like the Catholics are not going to pray for you one day a year. You are not a saint. Take care of yourself.
Okay, I think mine is more of a plea. So my sister is here. Wave your hand, Kari. Okay. She's up here in the front. She's up here in the front. So my sister and I are 10 years apart. We are first-generation college students. I graduated from Howard University right up the street. My sister is now a senior at Spelman College. And we have parents and grandparents and cousins, aunties, uncles, nobody who goes to college. So it's really like, we don't pump ourselves up enough, but it's great. And so being 10 years apart, we are night and day. I am more of the literature, language arts. She's more of the math and science. She's studying biochemistry, which is crazy to me. She wants to be a dentist. I became a teacher. And we're just getting to that age where I feel like we connect on things, we can hang out, like, she's not just my little sister, like, she's an adult. And I wanted her to come just to support, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna be on a panel, come. And all this weekend, people have been asking her, like, are you gonna join the Corps? And that was very far from her mind, and I never even thought to try to recruit her. I was like, that's not her thing, as much as I talk about how much I love teaching. But I'm just encouraging everyone to let some of your TFA, teacher love, rub off on her, because I'm sold that she has a great support system. She can do it, and I don't see very many black women teaching biochemistry to our kids, and I think that would just be amazing for my sister to be able to share, for me to share that part with her, not just in theory, but actually in action. So if you see us walking around this weekend, come on over, share your story, tell her why you think it would be great for her to make this March 4th deadline and apply to Teach for America.
Just thank you for coming out here. I feel really honored that you get to hear all of our voices, and also I hope you heard yourself and all the stuff that we were saying. One thing the mantra that I keep in my head, and I think I've had this since 2008, was from The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. And in The Work, he says, work is love made visible. And so that's basically what I think, a lot of us, we aspire to do that. I think we pour in all the love that we have in our students, in our classrooms, in any field that we're doing. And so I think hopefully that's the empathy that we need to have to continue this work, because our work is far from being over. We still have so many gaps, race and class, and I mean, it's an election year too, so I don't know if that voice matters when we go vote. But yeah, so basically work is love made visible, and just I want you guys to believe in yourself that what you're doing is good and honorable as an educator.
I'm going to piggyback off of what Chriselle said a little bit. An educator that I really admire is Sonia Nieto, and she writes a lot about teaching students of color, and a big mantra that she has is the idea that nice is not enough. And I feel like as teachers, and especially as white teachers, we need to keep that in our minds every single day. Nice is not enough. And you talked about the idea that this is an election year. What I think that means is that you can be a nice, sweet teacher to your kids, and you can still not change their outcomes. You can still not change the society that we live in that is going to potentially kill them. And what I think that requires of all of us as teachers, and I want to give you one more thing to do as a teacher, because I know my Wunder list has 18 items on it right now for probably due by noon. But like the idea that teachers need to be policymakers. And so I've been really privileged that I have been able to work with an organization called E4E that does a lot of work around getting teachers to write and advocate for policies, but that doesn't have to be the means to do it. There's, like, if you're in a union school, through unions, just through having your kids work on political campaigns and you work on political campaigns. Like, I feel like everybody in this room, like, things that Donald Trump is saying, I don't think anybody would be in this room if that didn't fundamentally offend you in, like, a really strong way. But, like, you need to be so pissed off about, like, the way he's talking about my kids, about your kids, about you, perhaps as people, that you are going to do whatever you need to change our society, like by getting out the vote, by writing policies, by just, I don't know, writing really angry letters, whatever you need to do. But, like, in whatever capacity you have, because obviously we do have a lot on our plates, but please be policymakers for your kids, because everything that goes on in our society hits them hardest, and we see it every day in our classes.
My parting thought is definitely not as inspirational as these guys, because it's actually a selfish question. I think it's probably like the struggle I'm having most with this year is just, how do I stay in this profession? How do we make it more sustainable? How do we limit teacher turnover? How do we, and not just because I'm tired, because I'm so tired, but I mean the impact on our kids. In our middle school, we have our elementary school attached to the same building, and so I see younger siblings that look exactly like the kids I'm teaching now, and they come up to me and they're like, I can't wait to have you, Miss Sun, in 3 years. And I'm like, 3 years. I really want to be there for you because I love you, and I know your mom so well, and we still text, and I've taught 4 of your siblings, right? But I think my larger question is, how do we get this incredible panel of people to actually stay? How do we actually make the profession something where you don't have to kill yourself, where you can call in for a sick day and still be an amazing teacher? Because really it's impacting our kids more than anybody else.
Let's give all of our panelists a round of applause. So I just wanted to thank you, panelists, again, for all that you guys are doing for your kids and for other teachers' kids. And for all of you guys in the audience, we encourage that you continue these conversations in your school, in your context, with your principal, with your superintendent, because the fact of the matter is those that are still standing and leading in front of our kids are the people that we should seek for the insight and the decisions to move us forward in this movement. You guys have a good day.